trial are you reading about?
The John Peter Zenger trial, 1735.
I love that trial.
How come?
Zenger's heroic tale helps me feel free to speak my mind.
Not quite sure how I feel about that. But I do agree. Freedom of the press is a wonderful freedom we enjoy in this country, and we have the Zenger trial to thank for that privilege.
I want to hear all about it.
Well, New York City, August 1731. A new British governor had just arrived to rule the colony of New York. Governor William Cosby was by all accounts a tyrant, greedy, jealous, and mean-spirited. For example, he once sued Rip Van Dam, a highly respected senior member of the New York Provincial Council, for half the salary Van Dam received while serving as acting governor before Cosby's arrival. Cosby, knowing he had no chance to win if his case were left to a jury, designated 3 members of the New York Supreme Court to hear his case. The judges voted 2-1 to uphold Cosby's action. Afterwards, Cosby wrote a letter to the one dissenting judge, Chief Justice Lewis Morris, demanding that he explain his vote. Morris complied by hiring a local German immigrant printer, John Peter Zenger, to publish a pamphlet with his explanation. Governor Cosby was furious. He removed Morris as Chief Justice and replaced him with James Delancey, who was loyal to the crown.
How rude! Morris was just doing what he asked him to do.
But I don't think Governor Cosby was expecting to hear his response through such a public forum.
I get it. Morris was trying to expose Cosby's deviant ways to the public, right?
Yes, I believe so. And Cosby's response only fueled the growing fire rising up against his administration.
Isn't this when they formed the Popular Party?
Correct. Van Dam, Morris, and an enthusiastic attorney named James Alexander formed this new political organization.
Alexander was a fireball. He also masterminded an independent political newspaper called the New York Weekly Journal.
I see you've been doing your homework.
I find the history of law so interesting.
Oh, good. Now, do you know why he created the newspaper?
I do. Alexander actually revealed the paper's mission in a letter to his friend. He said, "It is designed to chiefly expose him," referring to Governor Cosby, of course, and those ridiculous flatteries with which Mr. Harrison loads our other newspaper.
What other newspaper?
The New York Gazette, a paper edited by one of Governor Cosby's hired men.
Good work, Stryker. And who did Alexander ask to print his alternative newspaper?
John Peter Zenger, of course. One of only 2 printers in the colony. But why didn't Alexander and the other contributors to the paper sign their real names?
They knew they could be charged with seditious libel for attacking the governor and his administration.
Right. Seditious libel. And I have no idea what that means.
Seditious libel under English common law occurred when someone printed something that was deemed insurrection against the established order.
In other words, don't say anything bad about the establishment?
Right. Governor Cosby tried to silence the journal by focusing on the only name that appeared in every issue.
John Peter Zenger.
But, to his surprise, 2 grand juries of New York citizens refused to indict Zenger for seditious libel, since the authors of the publication were unknown. Zenger was only the printer. Frustrated, Cosby offered a reward of £50 for the discovery of the authors. He also issued an order for the public burning of Zenger's newspaper in front of City Hall. 11 days later, on November 17, 1734, John Peter Zenger was arrested. His lawyers, James Alexander and William Smith, were unable to get him released, and by April, they were disbarred by Chief Justice James Delancey.
How come?
Because they had objected to the 2-man court Governor Cosby had personally chosen to try Zenger's case.
Wait, a 2-man court? Who was supposed to be on it?
Justices Delancey and Phillips.
Oh, brother.
However, eventually, 12 jurors were selected instead.
Oh, good. A fair trial. And the replacement lawyer was no slouch either.
Andrew Hamilton, one of the best attorneys of the day, came to New York to defend Zenger.
The trial began with the Attorney General Bradley reading the seditious libel charges against Zenger. Then Hamilton spoke, sending a shockwave through the courtroom with his opening statement.
I do, for my client, confess that he both printed and published the 2 newspapers set forth in the information.
Zenger admitted he was guilty.
Guilty of printing, that's all. But Bradley thought he had won.
As Mr. Hamilton has confessed the printing and publishing of these libels, I think the jury must find a verdict for the king. Not so, Mr. Attorney. There are 2 words to that bargain. I hope it is not our bare printing and publishing a paper that will make it a libel. You will have something more to do before you make my client a libeler. For the words themselves must be libelous, that is, false, scandalous, and seditious, or else we are not guilty.
Hamilton then proposed that if he could show the statements printed by Zenger were true, they should not be considered libel.
But Justice Delancey wouldn't allow him to prove the truth, right?
Right.
The law is clear that you cannot justify a libel. The jury may find that Zenger printed and published those papers and leave to the court to judge whether they are libelous.
Hamilton then revealed the true nature of the defense strategy. Jury nullification.
What's that?
Well, jury nullification occurs when a jury returns a verdict of not guilty, despite its belief that the defendant is guilty. The jury, in effect, nullifies a law that it believes is either immoral or wrongly applied to the defendant.
Like in the 1800s when people were accused of harboring slaves in violation of the fugitive slave laws?
Yes, good example.
Well, let's see if it works here.
Your Honor, the jury may do so, but I do likewise know they may do otherwise. I know that they have the right beyond all dispute to determine both the law and the fact, and where they do not doubt the law, they ought to do so. It is natural, it is a privilege, it is a right which all free men claim, that they are entitled to complain when they are hurt. The question before the court and you, gentlemen of the jury, is not of small or private concern. It is not the cause of one poor printer. No, it may, in its consequence, affect every free man that lives under a British government on the main of America. It is the best cause. It is the cause of liberty.
Ooh, that's powerful.
Yes, and it worked. The jury returned only a short time later to announce their verdict.
Not guilty. Wow, what a great story.
The verdict inspired the colonial press to be more open and free as they continued to publish attacks on the British government and call for independence.
So, what became of the New York Weekly Journal?
Well, despite Cosby's attempts to end the publication, the journal continued on. In fact, it was printed every week by Zenger's family during the 8 months Zenger sat in prison awaiting his trial.
Awesome.
So, what case would you like to learn about next?
So, the object of the story is jury notification, which we have today. The reason why we could drink beer and wine and whiskey today is because jury notification. The jury all had to get factual evidence, so they drank a bottle of alcohol, which was moonshine. So the jury came back after the bottle was gone and said that they could not taste alcohol in there, and the man was set free. And the government had to reevaluate the law. And today, we are allowed to go to the store and drink beer. So keep this in mind, learn a little bit more about your jury rights.